But then once you give them that power, right, and it's really what it is with some of these tools, you also have to have governance, right? And governance is, for this particular tool, is much bigger, I think, than we've had for anything else before. Maybe cloud would have actually been like a closer kind of representation, like, hey, we're putting everything outside the data center, putting it up in the clouds. Like, what's the governance around that? How are we keeping things secure in transit, that type of thing. But with AI, right, it's you have some of those similar things. Like, how do I keep the data private, right?
Yeah.
So do I want people in my company to take information that is probably priority, right? Trade secret even. Do I want them to type out a prompt in a public version of Claude or Copilot or Perplexity or whatever and use that in a question? Because now that system is going to have that phrase, those words, and now it's out in public. You have to know how to get it out back in public, but there's ways now that you've kind of leaked that information. And so there has to be governance about what can I use these tools for versus tools that maybe that we have a private LLM that we're curating and keeping in there. So you're allowed to put any company or client information to that because it's not going to go outside of our company walls. Um, you also have to have governance around quality checks, right? I think one of the pitfalls that we're seeing up front is while I can go and use Lovable or a couple other tools to build a new app or even re-platform an app, if like create a new version of an old one. I can't just throw that out on to a cloud server and say, all right, everyone use it, right? What checks are you going to have that the code passes all of your company's data privacy rules and laws, um, also laws like, so that it's ethical the way it's done, that the UX, the UI is following, if you have one, what's your UX design system? Is it following that? Which sometimes is related to privacy and data as well. Is it using your corporate brand messaging, especially with bigger companies? It becomes more and more important um, because you can't just throw it out there. It's got to actually, it needs to have audit eyes on it, if you will. So all the people that have been both designing, coding, and releasing things, maybe we've made the coding part and the designing part easier, but now they have more work on the back end of reviewing it, making sure it meets all of our standards and guidelines from a company perspective and a law perspective. Um, so it's kind of a shift, right? Use the tool to be more efficient up front, but watch out. You gotta be very careful that what you put out there is not going to damage your business, right? Because you didn't check for, again, data privacy, design systems, things like that, that could be impacted.